Hey guys, this is Brett from Prepared Man. I'm doing an entry for a competition called In the Bush. This is round number 5. I'm going to build a Paiute deadfall trap and a figure 4 deadfall trap. Now the great thing is, this is mid-September. It started to cool down a little bit. We know that fishing, at least in southeastern Kentucky, is going to slow down a little bit for our just basic survival species of bass and all of our different type of panfish. It's going to slow down a little bit as the temperature cools down. But we are going to get into sort of the trapping season. Now a lot of people use metal traps, spring jaw traps and things like that. Today we're going to build some basic traps using basic tools. Just a couple of sticks and a knife. And all we're going to do is do some basic tasks like planing some square surfaces, making some notches, and we're going to use one piece of cordage. These types of traps are very versatile and they do have a high success rate if they're built properly. So after I get these traps built, we're going to take a look at them. We're going to take the components and how they work. And we're going to talk about some of the ways that people typically do them incorrectly. So stick with me. Okay guys, this is my first trap I wanted to show you, the figure 4 deadfall trap. Now this is actually a couple of modifications on the basic design. We have the bait stick, which is also the trigger stick that goes all the way across here. This brace actually holds the weight up, and this is the primary support. Now I want to talk about this for a minute because this thing is fairly solid. Mine's fairly solid, but this is not a successful trap. For one thing, the actual weight, my killing weight for the dead blow, is just a board, which is part of that competition from In the Bush. They told us to use a board, so I'm using a board. That's not going to kill anything. You're going to pick something in the head and it's going to run off, and somewhere around dark that night it's going to go, man, I got picked in the head today, that sucked. But it's just not going to work. Another couple things about this trap, and I'll show you when I trigger it, and then I'm going to reset it in a successful configuration, is the trigger stick is way back here, which is a good thing. So the actual prey is going to be, what the animal we're trying to trap is going to be underneath the trap itself when the deadfall falls. But you'll also notice that my counterbalance is underneath the weight as well. So when the trigger stick triggers, the counterbalance is just going to come down and hit this, and it's going to fall off. So let me go ahead and show you that real quick. Now I might still get picked in the head or picked in the shoulder or something, but it's just not a killing trap. So I'm going to reset this trap. Stick with me. Alright, now we've reset the trap in a successful configuration. It's the same deal. I've set the trigger stick half off so it's a little bit more sensitive, but now my actual weight, the actual drop that's going to do the killing, is hanging off the edge of this action stick. So when I trigger the trigger stick, there's nothing going to come in the way between this weight and the ground. So if you'll take a couple of quick looks, I'm going to zoom in and show you some close-ups here using some hand cameras, so bear with me, and I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about. Now, there are some basic knife skills. I've planed this side of the brace. It's got 2 square sides. That allows the trigger stick to attach here. You should take a look. You see how the trigger stick attaches using a number 7 notch. It's just a very basic figure 7 notch, and it's planed down so it doesn't interfere with the board. We've got another figure 7 here, 2 planed edges, and then all the way up here next to the weight I have a pivot point for my action. So it's basic notches, basic knife skills, basic things that I've talked about before with the tri-stick from Morse Kohansky. And if we look out, I'm going to go ahead and trigger this trap. I'll show you how it works. Boom. Now if that weight was significant, you'd be dead. Up next is the Paiute deadfall trap. Stick with me. Okay guys, this next trap that I built is called the Paiute deadfall trap. You'll notice that I've added some extra weight because the Paiute deadfall trap actually lacks a considerable amount of weight. It also uses one little piece of cordage. This could be natural or bank line. I used tarred bank line today just because I had it. This stick right here is a secondary part of the trigger. It actually counterbalances and wraps the string around the stick sort of, and it holds onto the lever. Now, you'll notice it's very similar to the figure 4. It's still got the figure 4 in theory, but this piece of cordage adds a lot of flexibility. Another great thing about it is the trigger stick itself, or the bait stick, is friction fit against the deadfall weight. What that means is I could put the food, the bait, all the way up here next to the deadfall, so the animal's head would actually be very, very close to the actual kill mechanism, the weight of the trap. Or I could put it way down here so I'd make sure I triggered the mechanism really easy. Either way, it's going to be an effective trap. Now, a couple of things about this trap, you're going to have to fit it on site. 99% of the time, this is not a pre-made trap. A lot of people will pre-make their figure fours and take them from their base camp and set them up. This is a trap that you set up on site. It's going to use some weight. When we come in and we touch the trigger stick, you'll notice it's not a sensitive trigger stick, and I could kind of adjust this and make it a more sensitive trigger stick. Really, where you're going to fail in this trap, and a couple of things I'd like to point out, is when you get all the way down here next to the trigger mechanism. Especially if you're using rounded sticks like I did. I tried my best to use things I'd find in nature. So if you look, this mechanism, my mechanism, is actually sitting inside of a notch. There's a notch on top and a notch on bottom that keeps the trigger mechanism from kind of twisting like this. And that keeps the trigger mechanism from going off just all of a sudden. If we go over on the other side, I'll try to show you here. My bait stick is actually furled. And what that allows me to do, this little furling right here, allows me to hold on to my bait stick a lot better and get my friction fit that I need. So everything is working and in place, and there's a considerable amount of weight. And the only thing holding my bait stick, we move around here, let me adjust the camera. The only thing holding my bait stick in place is the actual friction from the deadfall trap itself. So that sets up friction, it holds onto my bait stick, and then as soon as my trap is thrown, that bait stick's going to throw out of the way, and this considerable heavier amount of weight is going to take out whatever it hits. Now, this trap is set up correctly. This trap, if I use stone or something heavier, this would be the type of trap I'd set for squirrels or fast moving animals, rabbits, things like that. But there's a lot of moving parts to this trap. It's not my favorite trap, but then again, it's part of the contest for In the Bush, so I said I'd do it. So this is the Paiute deadfall trap. We've covered a couple of traps this time. Let's go back to the bench and we'll talk about a couple of things and wrap this up. Okay guys, that kind of wraps us up with these two primitive traps. My name is Brett Burns. This is an entry for In the Bush's H&R partner giveaway. This is for round 5. I've created the Paiute deadfall trap and the figure 4 deadfall trap. I've shown my trigger mechanisms and close-ups of all angles. All I used was my Blind Horse Knives BHK Bushcrafter. I actually used my little Norland hatchet to harvest the wood just because I like to use my Norland hatchet whenever I can. I used a piece of bank line, and I did use my Baco Laplander, but nothing in construction of the trap. I actually trimmed down the board that I used for my deadfall weight. So you could really do these traps easily with a good solid knife. I carry a couple of knives. This is my primary knife that I've been carrying here lately. My backup knife is the Mora Bushcraft Black. So either of these two knives could accomplish this task and create these traps with relative ease. I just like to use my tools, so I had a lot of tools out. Hope this entry's covered. Thanks guys. This is Prepared Man and Brett Burns. Stay safe.